You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do?
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I didn't have as good a time in the Rocky Mountains as I was hoping to. And I think a lot of us make mistakes, even though I planned ahead. If you make mistakes, it could really ruin your trip. It could ruin your trip bad. So I was talking to somebody who said, Dr. Dahlia, man, I am going to go and hike the Nepali coast. There's a park. I'm going to hike and we're leaving next week and I'm all excited. I go, oh, great. So you got a good entry time. What are you talking about? Well, you can't go there without a reservation and they give you a time. And I tried to book mine months in advance and I only got 4 p.m. So you were able to get in there at a good time? Like you need a reservation? Now you do. Rocky Mountain National Park, you need a reservation. For most of these parks now, you need a reservation. And I know we're thinking that there is vast miles of acreage that is taking up most of the state. You need a reservation. So when I was planning on going to my friend's memorial, I didn't get a chance to see Rocky Mountain last time I was in Colorado. Last year when I was with my son, we went to Colorado Springs, we did a little hiking, but I really wanted to go to the Rocky Mountains. So a few months prior, I decided to make a reservation. I was able to get an entry, but at noon. So you had to buy your entry, which is only a couple bucks, and then you have to pay for your car to go in. So it's one thing to go in. I guess that's for people who walk into the park. But if you want to bring your car, which you're going to need to because it's miles, it's an extra $30. Not a problem. So I paid for a parking pass and I paid for a timed entry. I really wanted to go to Alberta Falls. Well, you can't, even if you have the parking pass or the car pass, even if you have a timed entry, you can't go to Alberta Falls. You need to get an additional or another type of entry. Well, by then, there weren't any. And I knew what I wanted when I got it, but those were already all taken up. So now I have a pass to go, but I can't see what Bear Lake Road is one of the most famous. It's beautiful. That's where you see Alberta Falls. You get to go to the lake. I no access to it. So fortunately, when I did try to get in, but here's another thing you need to also know about. All right, so when I got my timed entry for the Nepali coast in Hawaii, they only gave me 4 p.m. And sundown was 5 something. So I'm like, we're not going to get much hiking in because we want to get all the way to the waterfalls and to the beach. It's a beautiful hike, one of the most beautiful hikes I've ever done. And you have to leave the park at sundown at 6:30. So you're only given a couple hours with that one little baby pass. So I'm like, well, let's try to get there a little early and maybe he'll let us in. And he did. So we got there at about 3:30. They let us in. No big deal. So I told my son, let's do the same with Rocky Mountain. I go, do you want to, he goes, should I drive? I go, let me drive because, so I can flirt with the guy if I need to. Well, luck of the draw, it was a woman and she didn't care. I'm not at the age where I could flirt much anymore because I'm old. And she's like, sorry, you got here 45 minutes early. So you can't come in. You need to wait. I'm like, okay, where do I wait? There was no place to wait. So you just have to go and then drive around. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll go to the other gate. Maybe there'll be a dude I could flirt with and get in. So I drove all the way to another gate, right? And so it took me 20-minute drive. It was, again, another woman. Nice. But she's like, sorry, you still have 12 more minutes. It's 11:48. I have a pass at noon. There's nobody at the gate. Nobody for miles. They won't let you in. So then I drove back to the other gate because it was closer to where I wanted to go. But if you're thinking that you're going to be able to get in early, no. And the reason why it was such a big deal is I had my memorial to go to at 5 p.m. And Rocky Mountain National Park is 2 hours out of Denver. So I was really cutting it close to see what I wanted to. Thank God. When I went to Bear Lake and I tried to sneak in, I didn't try to sneak in, but I wanted again to flirt with somebody. There was a cute guy guard. And he said, look, actually, they weren't looking. I could have just driven. but I want to do everything by the book. And I go, hi, is this where I go to get to whatever? I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just driven. But he said, actually, you can't if you don't have a timed entry. But there's another place where you could, on Fall River Road, where you could see waterfalls. And it's an amazing waterfall. Well, thank God he told me to do that, because we got to go and hike up a waterfall. And then we got to go all the way to the peaks past the tree line in Rocky Mountain. We got to see some glaciers. So it actually worked out. It worked out. But the mistake that I think a lot of people made, because you saw a lot of people upset, is that they underestimate how many people want to be at these parks. And these park rangers, God bless them, they're trying to do their job, but they want to limit the number of people. So as we're leaving the park, because I got to race back to Denver to get to the memorial, we are seeing 2 to 3 miles of cars waiting to get into the park. And that was probably the 2 to 4 p.m. entry, which means if they wanted to get in for the day, now they're losing about an hour or two. So the things you got to think about is, if you're planning a trip, the day you get your plane tickets or you get your camper rented or whatever you're doing is the exact same moment you better make a reservation for where you want to go. Because it doesn't matter if for years in the 90s and 2000s you could just walk up. In fact, it's very interesting. I used to always hike at Zion. You would just drive in. You paid to get in. I'd go up to the Narrows trailhead, park, hit the trailhead, walk a mile, and then now you're in the river. No, now it's shuttles. You can't park here. You can't bring your car here. You got to make a reservation. And again, I'm not criticizing. I understand they want to preserve the land. God bless them for us having these beautiful parks. But, if you're thinking among all that acreage, you could be one of the 5 or 10,000 to go in. No, they're only letting in hundreds. And even though it's sparse where we're all going to be, they really limit it. And so I've seen and heard in the airport, I always hear this at the airport. I go, how was your trip? Did you like your trip? Whatever, because I talk to people. They're like, it was an absolute waste because we got here to go to the national park and they said you needed a reservation. We didn't have one. So here we are renting a car, hotel, everything, and we can't get into the park. Now, one way to get around that is to camp in the park, because if you're already that kind of gets you in. But don't think you get to sweet talk your way in 12 minutes before your timed entry. They're by the book over there. So it was still a good trip, but I didn't get to see everything I wanted to see. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Dahlia here. Thousands of physicians, residents, nurses, and medical students are silently dealing with depression. And tragically, 400 take their lives each year. 400! I wrote The Depressed Doctor, hoping to reach out to anyone struggling. You're not alone. Don't stay silent. The Depressed Doctor can be found on Amazon, or the book can be found on drdahlia.com. And if you or anyone you know needs help, call or text 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline.
We, the people, are guaranteed 5 freedoms in the First Amendment.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of religion.
Freedom of the press.
Freedom to peaceably assemble.
Freedom to petition the government.
Only the United States has these 5 freedoms so simply bound together and guaranteed. Think first. Learn more at thinkfirstamendment.org.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So there's some new data looking at where Americans face the highest cost of living. And the reason why you're going to see a lot of this is because with the election coming up, they're going to be making the argument that we're affordability, that we don't have the American dream because people can't buy a house, and they're not wrong about things being ridiculously expensive. And when you look at the states and where they fall, it's interesting. There's actually a couple surprises in there. But one thing I want to say about the psychology of the American and where they look at what they're able to afford is I'm a little shocked. Maybe it's because I worked with patients and I had patients who didn't want to pay their $5 or $10 copay, yet I would see them at the nail salon or I'd see them across the street at the hair salon, and you're like, okay, I know they're dropping $150 right now. And so when you look at the average American, having a place where they could live with or without a roommate, even if it's an apartment, having an iPhone, having a computer, having internet. I'm not saying every American has that. We have a lot of people who are poor that don't have access to internet and don't have, and I wish we could eventually work on that to make sure people have access to it. But I remember Obama gave out Obama phones, but I heard they didn't work very well. But what's your frame of reference? If I was growing up, when I was growing up in the 80s, we had one television. Maybe there were a couple years when my parents were able to have a TV set in their bedroom. But for the most part, one television was a big deal. A computer. We didn't have a computer in our house. It was too expensive. The very first time I had a computer was after medical school when I got married. So that was that was 1997. So if you in the 80s or early 90s said, look, you having a computer, you having, your own bedroom, you're having a TV, you're having an apartment where you don't have to share the bathroom, but you get to have your own bathroom in your apartment, you'd be like, wow, okay, that's kind of fancy. Well, now we take that for granted, especially in America with air conditioning, with so, and I'm not saying everybody's rich. They're not. We really, really struggle. But the American dream of everybody having their own 4-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house, is not very realistic. I wish it were. I wish everybody could get a house. But what people are spending money on, it's a lot. They're streaming. For everybody to have watched Game of Thrones, that means they had access to HBO Max, which means somebody had to pay for HBO Max. For people to be on social media and all this, that means they have a phone. That means they have Wi-Fi. They're paying for that. That costs a lot of money. And so is it that what happens is people want what other people have, and they feel like if they don't have it, America is crushing their dream. I felt that way when I was, because I worked in medical school. I waited tables, worked. Then I worked when I was pregnant, moonlighted, because, again, you're only averaging about $1.50 an hour in residency. Then we had student loans. I had 2 babies within 2 years on purpose because I wanted to start my family. So we never had, I think the only time I ever traveled out of the country was I went to Tijuana in college with some friends. And there was a subsidized trip for youth to go to Israel for a week. That was about the only travel I had. And I worked and then you saw some of these other people get to go to Europe. I was like, gee, wow, you must be rich, or you must be so lucky. You must be, but I didn't know about it unless somebody told me. Now you're watching online, everybody going everywhere. And even, my medical students who I taught, who hardly had any money, here they are in places I never went to because I didn't think I had the money. Well, they were smart. They figured out how to use miles. They found cheaper tickets, ways to do it. And they didn't even have to pack or do youth hostels. They were able to stay in places and make it work. What you do is you travel with a bunch of people, so you could all share, and then you could split and things like that. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this fear of missing out. I'm like, well, I want to do it. So I was able to find an inexpensive flight, was able to get, the family to, we were able to make it work. Okay. Well, what I think is happening is people feel like their situation sucks because they're looking at everybody else going to, like, I have some friends that actually got to go to the Super Bowl or got to go to the World Cup. I'm not jealous, because in our religion, we're not supposed to be jealous of people. But did I feel like, well, gosh, I really love sports. Why couldn't I have done that? Well, because I didn't have the money and I didn't want to spend that kind of money. But people are seeing this going, well, I want to go to the World Cup, or I want to go to the Stanley Cup playoffs, or I want to do this. And then they feel like their life sucks. But when you look at their home, their air conditioning, their computers, their Wi-Fi, their iPhone, their car, you're like, you kind of are living the American dream when you compare it to other countries where a lot of people are living in tents or they're living in multiple, areas of squalor. And you would think people would have the access to see that and know how lucky they are. But they don't watch those. They want to watch their buddy, hike in Hawaii or hike in whatever. This is why I tell you guys about the trips and what I spent. So exactly, and you could calculate, is that something I want to do? Do I want to spend $30 for my car to go into the national park? Do I want to, stay in Denver when it's where it's cheaper? Do I, because I want people to be able to travel and do things and experience things. But you're looking at, you're looking at, well, people feel unhappy. They feel like they're never going to get ahead. But I'm like, you just bought a new phone. I mean, I'm looking at some of these iPhones people have. Fancy tech. I'm like, why did you, didn't your iPhone 7 work fine? But people are spending and they're spending. I look at the nail jobs. I look at their hair jobs. These are expensive. Lashes. Lashes could cost anywhere from $100 to $200 a month. So the American dream was easier because you didn't do lashes. You didn't do extensions. You didn't always dye your hair. You didn't need an iPhone. You didn't need a computer. You only needed a TV. You could share a car. But now our expectations are different. And people feel if they have to share a car or share an apartment. I shared apartments. I had roommates and I still felt like I was living the American dream because I was only living with one other stranger. I didn't have to live in a room full of strangers. So I think our perceptions are changing. And so when I hear people like, okay, oh gosh, economically, we're screwed. And I go, aren't you living in so-and-so? And don't you have a couple, what? Are you saying you're economically screwed or in general? Well, I could be doing better. I go, dude, and I'm looking at them as rich, but they're not feeling rich. People they think rich is Elon Musk. Where you have a place to live, shelter, food, computer, ability to travel, some extra money in the bank. To me, growing up, that was what a rich person was. I wasn't thinking Elon Musk. I was thinking just, what I didn't have. So if you're looking at other people going, well, I want that and I don't get it, then yeah, you're going to feel sad. There's a new study out looking at the most expensive states. And interestingly, Hawaii, of course, at the top. Massachusetts followed second. Then Alaska, California, New York competed in the top 5. Arizona was one of the higher ones. In fact, Arizona was as expensive as Washington, Oregon. Believe it or not, it looks like it's in the same cost of living index as New York. Nevada, not as bad. The Midwest and the South, the cheapest. Oklahoma, one of the most reasonable. Alabama, Mississippi, Kansas, West Virginia, Indiana, Iowa, Missouri, Tennessee, and Arkansas made the most reasonable of the top 10. Then New Mexico, Georgia, Texas, North Dakota, Louisiana. Then Nebraska, South Carolina, Kentucky, Minnesota, Wyoming. Rounding out the top half, Ohio, Michigan, South Dakota, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. So, look at what you have, be grateful for what you have, and figure out where you want to put your resources. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we get these news reports saying that they may have a blood test to help us predict Alzheimer's. There's like this new Alzheimer's blood test that predicts who is likely to develop it in 5 to 10 years. We've spoken about these tests. Every year there's a new test. I don't see us actively using them, but this latest research from Harvard that was presented at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference in London shows that they can measure a biomarker called p-tau217, which tracks the buildup of damaging proteins in the brain. And they think that they may be able to do a blood test like we do with cholesterol screening to screen for Alzheimer's. Do we have a cure for Alzheimer's? Do we have a vaccine for it? No. But we do have some medicines that can stave it off. And so if we are able to identify individuals early, that's huge. And I'm excited about that. For example, with this, they say symptom-free individuals with high levels of this p-tau217 had an estimated 78% chance of developing cognitive impairment within 10 years and a roughly 1 in 3 chance within 5 years. Even those with moderately elevated levels faced a 45% risk over a decade. And the p-tau217 protein is a modified form of tau, which forms these tangles in the brain associated with memory loss. And rather than us having to wait for people to have cognitive deficit to be able to take a test, that would be wonderful. Now, I can't necessarily predict everything, for individuals, but it could be huge. But the reason why many people are not getting too excited about all of these is because they're dealing with the here and now. And the here and now is pretty frightening, not only for what the patient goes through, but for the cost and what families are going through. And we just spoke about the American dream and how, a lot of the younger people who say America sucks, they're sitting there with their iPhones and their computers and their Wi-Fi. And I'm like, that's kind of cush, but I understand there's many people that are struggling. Just the ones complaining about it, they don't seem to be struggling because they're in their car on their iPhone with their Wi-Fi and they're with nails and lashes and they got money somehow that they're spending. But for those of us who have had older family members, like my family, for example, always struggled financially. And the reason why, and I support them for this, was because, one, I didn't support my father had a gambling issue, but he was gambling to try to make money to feed the family. But still, that hurt us deeply. But because we always had family members we had to take care of. Insurance wouldn't do, the cancer care and the Alzheimer or the dementia care or the, where there's one family talking here in Business Insider where their mother's long-term care is now already at the $400,000 mark. And I don't think they've even, this has been going on now since 2014. They took 45 grand to out of their savings to invest in the home to make have the parent live with them, convert a guest house. The family, is taking care of them. And then finally, the mom moved to an independent living facility that costed $2,400 a month. Although I'm hearing now, on average, it could be close to $5,000 a month. And it's getting expensive. But it's getting very, very expensive. And there's not that much. You don't have a lot of services readily available that people know that they could use. Medicare doesn't necessarily cover nursing homes, and assisted living. And so it's basically relying on the family. Well, if the family has to work, if the family has to, if the family doesn't get along, it's a mess. And I think we all fear, not only do I fear getting cancer later and Alzheimer's or anything like that later, but I fear being a financial burden on the kids. And so for those individuals who have the ability to pay for long-term disability, long-term insurance. See, my family, they didn't pay for life insurance, didn't pay for any of that. I had to pay. I had to cover the funerals. I had to cover all of that. And that so even when I was my own adult, I was going broke just because of the family and what they needed. And still, I gave them money for years. One of the reasons why I waited tables in medical school was not that I had to support myself because I could live on the student loans, but I needed the money to help. I needed the money to give the family. And I'm glad I did it. But, oh my God, if somebody needs long-term care, we're screwed. California has, I think Medi-Cal has this IHSS program that pays for in-home supportive services. But if you notice, there's a lot of fraud with elder care. And so because people have been screwing over the system, we might see some of those cares limited. They also have like a family caregiver support program, FCSP. I think certain Medicaid in some states will give money that you could use for somebody to come and clean the house and cook and things like that. But don't quote me because I hear that money's hard to find. The Alzheimer's Foundation of America and Hilarity for Charity offers some financial grants to help for temporary respite care. But if you have a family member who, God willing, can live well into their 90s, but they're starting to struggle in their 60s, you can't pay for it. And we don't want somebody to die because there's no money to take care of them. So collectively as a country, as we have more people aging and outliving the heart attack, like my father had a heart attack at 62. He died way too young. But men would die in their 40s, 50s, 60s of heart attacks. Thank God now they're less stubborn than my father was, and they go to the medical provider. They get treatment. So now they're outliving the heart attack in middle age. But they're now getting old enough to get, memory loss, to get cancer. And those things are a lot more expensive to take care of than somebody dying of a heart attack. And so one of the reasons why we're really struggling medically is we're keeping people alive. We're able to figure out how to keep grandpa, great-grandma alive, which I'm excited about. But we don't have the money for that. The systems were designed for older people to pass. They weren't designed for older people to live well into their 90s. And so now people are calling for socialized medicine. Well, what happens in socialized medicine countries? The older people are not getting cush assisted living. There's not enough money. So you need to collectively now, if you have family members or friends or whatever, to come up with plans If you are able to get a decent, insurance plan, the problem is nobody wants to insure a 70 or 80-year-old woman or man for long-term care. But you might need to think about that for your family now that you're younger, if you are younger. But seeing people go into debt, like my family did, because they want to take care of their family member. And when you ask AI, how do we fix this problem? You know what AI is going to say? AI is going to say, quit intervening. Let nature take its course. And we don't want that. I have a good friend who just had a baby. And that baby now has a great-grandmother. And I'm so glad the great-grandmother is alive, gets to see the baby. She still has good quality of life. I don't want to see a system throw that person away. But that's what's going to happen if nobody has money to take care of them. And when you expect the state to take care of these costs, it's phenomenally ridiculous. So what we need to do is look at how we could get assisted living or this care cheaper. I understand, having your own private apartment, and that costs money. Somebody cooking meals for you, it does cost. But what I like that Trump is doing is starting these Trump accounts, pushing people to have their own HSA and their own savings accounts so they do have money to draw from. It'd be nice if everybody had a house, could sell the house and use that money to pay for their long-term care, but they don't. But where we need to be focusing is not all this arguing on, socialism and all that, is how are we going to make assisted living cheaper? 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did, and just maybe someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So this cop is a hero for saving a driver from a burning car moments before it goes up in flames. And when you watch the video, you're like, this is frightening. The car was not in an accident. It just looks like it just went on fire, which makes me wonder if there's a battery to it, if it's hybrid. Apparently hybrids have some of the worst fire records. I like hybrids. In fact, I rented a hybrid. I've been on a few trips, And I usually get a rental car because I have to drive a lot to places and it just doesn't make sense to Uber, all that. And I decided, if you have a hybrid, I'd like to have a hybrid. Oh my gosh. I drove around Long Island and my gas bill was only $5 because of the charging and the regenerative braking and things like that power the battery. And then in Colorado, I was driving around to the Rocky Mountains, to Colorado Springs. I probably only spent about $30 in gas for the whole weekend and that whole trip with miles on the car. Why? Because the hybrid. So I'm really kind of liking hybrids, but I'm just seeing these car fires, which are really frightening. This Texas cop, very, very brave. He was, I think, doing a traffic stop when he sees a car just suddenly catch fire. He was in a Nissan Altima, and he was heading down Highway 114 in Southlake on June 7th. Now, the Nissan Altima, I think I see a gas tank, but it doesn't look like an old car. It looks relatively new. I can't say the year, but it looks like it's in the 2020s. So it's not like this is an old car with old fuel lines and things like that could cause a fire. So I'd like to know if this was a hybrid or not. But the car just starts to really smoke and catch fire, and the cop runs over and helps pull him out of the car. Good for him. And he was his name was Officer Swisher. See if I have his first name for us. I don't know why it's not, but just they're calling him the brave cop, and they just call him Swisher. So I don't have his full name. So hopefully we'll get that. Oh yeah, there we go. Southlake Police Corporal Joshua Swisher. So he was dealing with an unrelated traffic stop on the highway. He was notified of the heavily smoking car by his superiors. Dash cam and body cam footage, according to New York Post, shows him pulling up his car, running down the busy highway to the smoking car, and it just immediately catches fire. He said, I couldn't even see inside the video. All I saw were his hands, and it was the driver trying to get his door open from the inside. Wow, very frightening. Smoke fills his car. You could see him already start to struggle to breathe. And the cop tries to grab the handle. Handle flies right off. Driver is trapped. So he smashes the window open with a window breaker. And then, which you should always have on you. God, I have one of these window breakers so you could get out, even if you're submerged in water. You could break the window. And then they got him to come out through the window. And the man was able to stand. He looks like he was doing okay. You start to see burns on him. The man looks like he was probably in his 50s or 60s. And thank God the cop was there. There was some arm hair burned, things like that. But overall, he did good. So way to go with this, But I keep wondering, I'm like, we keep hearing about these car fires. And I understand in a car accident, there's that chance that a car or somebody put in a car bomb, but we keep hearing of these cars just randomly going on fire. Now, data is showing that hybrid cars are more than twice as likely to catch fire than gasoline cars. They say fully electric vehicles have lower risk of fire, although that's according to the National Transportation Safety Board looking at fires. But I mean, I've seen videos where EVs hit a tree and then boom. So I think that these are studies looking at random catching fire as opposed to an accident causing the fire to happen. Ann Hetch ends up dying from her car fire accident. It took over an hour to get that car fire out. And it hit a home. It took over an hour to get the fire out. Ann Hetch was able to get out of the car, but she died from her injuries. But you wonder, was that related to an electric battery? It's interesting. I have a charger, an electric battery. I have an electric charger for my phone in case I'm on a plane and there's no chargers. And usually they say, if you have an electric charger, don't use it. Or if you are going to use it when we tell you and let us know. Now they're just saying, don't use it. Don't be using your electric charger. And on my flight yesterday, they said, just plug into the seats. Although my plugs don't do that. They don't have those typical plugs. That's what's so stupid about these iPhones. You have to buy the charger. It's so dumb. or you have to buy there's a cord, but then you have to buy the transformer, and it's dumb the way they do that because they want you to spend more money. But lithium batteries are pretty frightening. And we just keep hearing, another vehicle fire this is being reported. I apologize here. I don't know if I have, this is in Tennessee. A vehicle just caught fire on Interstate 75. Just as of noon. The traffic stopped. There was a fire, no accident, nothing. Now, we know fires can happen with electric batteries, with lithium batteries, if they're submerged, in water. If there's, but just to be randomly on the road. Remember there was that gentleman who was in California and he was going off at, or I think he smelled something. He started going on the off ramp, and then his car, was electric vehicle, immediately burst into flames. He was able to get out, but he said if my kid was in the backseat of the car, I wouldn't have been able to get to him in time. So I bring this up not because I'm anti-EV or anti-hybrid. I really like hybrid saving me money. I have a fuel injected car, because I got a used Corvette and it's used. And I love the fact that it was used because it saved me money. But, keep an eye out for this because the media is not covering this. They're just not covering the car. We know there's a car fire, but you keep hearing car fire, and not accident-induced car fire. These are just random car fires. Now, the San Jose Fire Department in California, earlier this year, said they were investigating a string of fires, but they want to make sure this wasn't arson related. So but I don't know if we ever got, information on that. But apparently there were 11 vehicles on fire in 5 different locations. I can't say if it was related to a hybrid or anything like that. I can't say if it was, related to arson. Kentucky Fire Department had to fight 2 car fires within 1 week's time last month. I don't think anybody's piecing all these together unless this is how common it is. When you look at the National Transportation Safety data, they're like, yeah, car fires happen. They happen every year, more so in gas cars. But hybrid now are starting to. Now, keep in mind, more people have hybrids than they used to. So, yeah, the numbers are going up. But, I'm starting to kind of get excited because of the money I'm saving on gas. But I don't want my car to randomly start fire. I was driving my mom around Israel, and the car began to smoke. But it was a fuel-injected car, no battery, and it never caught fire. It just smelled of smoke. And cars do that. We don't know what happened, but it definitely cut my trip short. And I was able to make it to the parking lot and leave the car there for the car company to swap it out. But I had already, started to fly home before I got the new car. But thank God it didn't start fire. But it's crazy when you're driving, all of a sudden you see smoke coming out of your car. It's pretty damn frightening. So keep an eye on things. And if you do have a hybrid or EV, make sure the maintenance is up to date. 1-877-DOC-LA.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.